so that you can begin the cycle and complete the cycle is absolutely essential to your well-being. I say that because you have to go through the whole loss cycle and complete it. Otherwise, what happens is you can identify with a sense of helplessness. You can identify with a sense of low self-esteem. You can also create a sense of having very low expectations or no expectations, and actually identify with being a victim. So knowing that there is a need, actually a necessity, to allow yourself to surrender to the process is very important. And everyone seems to have prescriptions about how to do this. And some people might say, be strong, or take tranquilizers, or be busy and reinvest in some type of volunteer work or service or church work. And it's very important that you simply give yourself time to let your own grieving process unfold naturally. Because when I say that grief is a teacher, what I mean is that grief will absolutely cause you to question everything about your own life. And as human beings, we're going to have one way of understanding grief. However, we're multidimensional beings, so our essence also has an idea and a way of making meaning out of grief. So one of the things that's really important to pay attention to is there a soul agreement here between you and the person who has died? And to give yourself permission to just be with that question, paying attention to, if there was a soul agreement, was it complete? If so, take responsibility for it. If not, know that it's still possible to create communication between your soul and the person's soul who has entered another dimension. I call that the inspirited rather than dead, because for me, energy moves. It still has vibration, there's still information there. And you also would be responsible in terms of your essence nature to pay attention to, are there psychic cords that are connecting you with the person who has continued their evolution? What you need to know is, if there are cords, not only are you holding that person back from their continued evolution, you're also holding yourself back. And on a spiritual level, you're creating some karma. So that's important. The other important part of grief is in terms of paying attention to what is unfinished. What's the unfinished business? And this especially happens in terms of sudden deaths, or violent deaths, or accidental deaths, where there's no warning and a lot is left unsaid and undone. Part of recovery communication is saying what you didn't say. And some of that means saying what you're angry about, as well as saying what you regret, as well as expressing what you appreciated. All of it is necessary. It's not too late. As a survivor, you have a responsibility to clear as much of your energy as possible. And so that communication is important. There may be a need to make some amends. There may be a need to ask for forgiveness. As long as you make it your intention to complete the cycle, it will happen. The place that oftentimes people will get caught is in resentment. And what I most want you to know is that resentment is simply unresolved anger. Resentments are a dysfunctional aspect of anger that has not been worked through. And it causes the grief cycle to stop. And you're stuck. Whenever there's resentments, the relationship cannot evolve. You can't evolve, the other person can't evolve. So the resentment, the dissolving of the resentment is very important. Imagination is often viewed as a casualty during the grief process. So if being creative and imaginative was part of your lifestyle during the grief process, it's like on a permanent leave of absence. And that creates another whole grieving process. That was very true for me after my son died, because I teach creativity. And it was like I had amnesia about how to be creative, how to begin, how to jump start. It just didn't happen. And in talking with many parents of children who died suddenly, that also is true for them. One of the activities that I found useful to pay attention to my imagination was through art and drawing. And it's simply taking a piece of paper and some colored crayons and letting your imagination draw a symbol of where you are right now in terms of your grief process. And letting go of thinking, letting go of being a good artist or even being able to draw at all, and just letting your imagination and your soul supply an image. And after that, taking another piece of paper and making your intention to address where you want to be in your grief process in 6 months. And again, just letting your hand be an extension of your heart and letting another image be drawn on your paper. And the final part of this invitation to imagination is, once again, being aware of your heart and asking your hands to draw an answer to, how do I arrive there? And you've got your roadmap right there. And it bypasses thinking, because grief is an assault on your thinking. You cannot think your way out of it. Oftentimes, what helps the most is stories of other people who have been there, who have been through it. I call us veterans. It's like veterans of grief.